You know, in the Gospel of Mark, despite all the tragedies that befall Jesus Christ, he's still very hopeful. He's an optimist, that he can teach people. He tells them stories. I mean, read chapter 3. He quiets down the storms. He quiets down the waves on the sea or the ocean. His disciples are really, really frightened by what they're witnessing about the ocean or the sea. And Jesus keeps looking at them and says, you know, I multiplied fish. I multiplied bread. I did all these magic tricks. You know I'm a shaman. You know, I have powers. I have power to quiet down the winds and the waves and the storms. And you guys, what is wrong with you? Why do you lose your faith so easily? So he tries to educate them. In the Gospel of Matthew, he says, maybe I should educate my own people, the Jews. And he has a miserable time. He's on the cross. So much for giving people wisdom, being hopeful. In the Gospel of Luke, he's a bit more evolved. You know, he says, you know, Father or God, I tried my best with people. They're stupid. It's not even their fault, so forgive them. You know, it's like when you have 2-year-olds or 5-year-olds and they do stupid things. Well, you don't smack them. You just say, yeah, you know, my kid. He doesn't know the value of money. He doesn't know the value of time. I'm just going to be miserable for the next 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years until he gains some maturity. That's really the realm of all parents. And then you have the Gospel of John. He doesn't tell a single story. He comes to realize that you can't talk to people and educate them. People don't have time to go home and pick apart these stories to figure out what the wisdom is within them. Despite, you know, I bring the dead back to life, no one cares. They still deny me, they still reject me. And then he becomes a true cynic in the Gospel of Judas. I'm done with people. I don't want to be around people. People are just unteachable. But he doesn't say that because he is vicious and mean-spirited. He's tried, he's been there, he's done that, only to realize that it matters very little what you do for people. If people are not ready, they're never, ever, ever going to learn. And do not be deceived. Inspiration is very different than you having the capacity or being in the right place to learn. So he leaves. You know why he leaves? He commits suicide. You know why he does? You can't make the grass grow by pulling it. I teach, I come and tell stories, but I force people to think. It doesn't work that way. And you can't be a shaman just because you pull some magic tricks and inspire people and people follow you. It doesn't mean that they're your students. Good teachers, really, really, really good teachers, are always hopeless. Always. They've been seasoned by experience. They are under no illusion when they walk to Lucky's in Montclair. How people look at them, what people are thinking in private. It's not that they're pessimists, they are realists. They know racism is something profoundly real. They know their own history relatively well. They know what Montclair is, who occupies that space. They are pessimists, but they're educated. You could also have someone who is like Carlton, African American, but completely oblivious. And he's always optimistic. Oh no, everybody loves me. My best friends are Caucasians. And that may be so. But do you believe this because you have experience, or do you believe this because you have no experience? And the show tells you, Carlton is hopeful only because he has zero experience. So when you have enough experiences, and when you are able to observe and process those experiences, hope leaves you. How are your teeth?
They're pretty good.
You have cavities? When was the last time you went to the doctor? Dentist? Oh, that's too long. See, that's the reason why you don't care about your teeth. You haven't been slapped by reality of a message given to you by a dentite. When you go to a dentist and he or she x-rays your mouth, you'll walk away saying, oh my God, I got 28 cavities. You're no longer going to be as hopeful. Good teachers are like x-ray machines. They see you. And though you may be hopeful, though you may be arrogant and hubris and think very highly of yourself, because they have Superman or Spidey visions or Spidey powers, they say, oh, you think too highly of yourself. You think you're able to learn. I don't think so. Get lost. Be a good pessimist. Good job. So, shamans, meditation. Before we talk about magicians or shamans, there are a couple of things you need to understand. If you happen to have lived, say, in a Native American tribe, and there are lots of them, they all have different traditions, different rituals, they believe in different things. And so when America was going to just umbrella all of them as Native Americans, initially they kind of disagreed and fought, saying that no, you can't just call us Native Americans. We have different tribes, and each tribe holds on to a certain philosophy. You're not the same. But nevertheless, if you happen to be Native American, what you realize is that they have a shamanic philosophy, they have a shamanic tradition, that in every tribe, in every village, in every one of their cities, they hold one person as having magical gifts. And those gifts have been given to them from the gods. And so when the elders of a certain tribe looks at a 12-year-old and say, you need to come to the tent, you need to smoke the pipe, it's time for you to get a vision, so that we could figure out who you are, what you are, and how you can benefit this community. And the 12-year-old does. And he has a vision, and his name is forever changed. Or if you happen to come from New Guinea, certain villages, you know, you're a 5 or a 6 or a 10-year-old kid, and you're just playing, I don't know, Legos, and all of a sudden, 5 giant people with masks on, they run into the tent or knock open the door, and you as a 10-year-old got to wrestle these masked men. And they will eventually submit themselves to you, but then you unmask them. You remove the mask. The masks of gods have been removed by you, the 10-year-old. That's your initiation into adulthood. If you're a Native American as a 12-year-old, that's your initiation into your vision quest, figuring out what your real name is. You know, you have a name given to you by your parents, and then you have the name given to you by the gods above. And each name has different functions. When you're Joe, you know, it's like Peter Parker. When life is good, when there are no problems out there, you are Peter Parker. You go to school, you hang out with MJ, you know, you have a good time. When things are difficult, life is problematic, you're no longer Peter Parker, you're Spider-Man. You no longer go by the name Peter Parker. You wear a mask. You're no longer a human being. You're above human beings. So, if, for example, you live in Oakland and you happen to have read a book, Black Elk Speaks, and part of the book says, oh yes, we have shamans in our community, and just in case you're discontent and sad and miserable about your life, find someone, smoke a pipe. You'll go into this trance, and you'll get some visions. And then you'll figure out who you are, what you are, and what you need to do. And so what are you? You're like this white kid or black kid in Oakland. Do you have any native blood inside you? Zero. In fact, you got negative. Okay? Yeah.
I had native, but I would be scared to smoke the pipe out of it.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Yeah. Good. And that's another point that we need to talk about. You need to be very, very careful who's giving you the pipe. It has to be someone who has been seasoned by life and philosophy. Don't just accept the pipe because someone looks, a little magical. Long hair, wears a turban, long cloak, yeah. And and he has like this deep voice, I see your aura before you. The colors covering you are black and white and blue. You truly are an American. And now, so the first thing you need to understand is if you don't come from that culture, do not do culture appropriation. Do not steal something that doesn't belong to you. Do not steal something that you don't have the hardware for. That's not your software. It doesn't belong to you. When you go to India, if you run into some really, really good teachers, the first thing they will ask is, how were you brought up? What is your religion? What's your parents' religion? And just in case you say, I'm a Christian, and even though you may be in the presence of Ramakrishna himself, one of the greatest of Indian mystics, he will look at you and say, listen, it is true, I have seen God. It is true, I have been touched by God. But the truth is, I am Indian. I am seasoned by India, by its culture, by its heritage, by its history, by Hinduism. You are an American. And though I appreciate your sincerity, that you do want to be a seeker after wisdom, I'll give you some basic stuff, but you need to go back to Arizona, a church that's not too far away from your own house. Occupy that. Read the Bible with this particular fellow. Be a Christian. There was this Western guy, American guy really, who had gone to Mahatma Gandhi a long time ago. And he said, Mahatma, you're such a great man, and I just want to be just like you. What is your religion? And Gandhi does something and says something really interesting. And that's another mark of a good teacher. He doesn't invite the person to himself. He says, what is your religion? And the guy says, well, I'm a Christian. He says, go read the New Testament very, very carefully. And be sincere when you read the book. And become a good Christian, the way Jesus was. And you will come to the same point that I have come to. That if you do things the right way, whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Buddhist or an atheist or an agnostic, gay, straight, it doesn't really matter. If we do things the right way, all of us can meet at the right place. Okay? So, having said all of that, let me say a few things about shamans. There are, as all things under the sun, someone who has the potential to be a shaman, but that potential is dormant, it's hidden under an avalanche of just social nonsense. And then there are those who realize that they truly have some gifts at a very, very young age. Their parents realize that they have gifts at a very, very young age. One of the best, perhaps, people you can read about this is Edgar Cayce. He's an American shaman. He, I think, was referred to as being dumb in school. He tried his best, but I think he failed miserably. He enjoyed reading, just not reading for the academics and institutions and instructors. Something interesting happens to Edgar Cayce. He always had this funny feeling about himself that there is something about him that's just not right. And he couldn't really understand. At any rate, one day he's sitting, he's reading a book, he just gets tired, and he lays his head on this book and sleeps. He wakes up, and the entire book is in his mind. Remember, if you've seen the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, the spider bites him, he goes into his room, he has no shirt on, he wakes up, he puts his glasses on, and things don't look very good. He removes the glasses, which he's been wearing for the past 90 years. And when he has the glasses on, he can't see well, but when he doesn't have the glasses on, he sees perfectly well, and he doesn't understand. Then he looks at his body, he's got 2-pack, 4-pack, and 6-pack, his belly, and his biceps are really, 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 I don't know, they're formed well. And that's what Edgar Cayce felt. So you know what he did? He began laying his head on books, and he realized that he remembers everything without even opening the book. And then people would call him. If he's in Arizona and you're in California and you're sick, you call him. And he says, what's your problem? I got this migraine headache, and I got this, and I got that. He says, just stay quiet for a minute. And you're quiet. He's quiet. And after 20, 30, 40 seconds, he says, listen, you need to go to your fridge. There is avocado, there is parsley, there is lemonade, and there is orange juice. Shove them into your nose, and you'll be fine. And you do. And everything about you is perfectly fine now. The point I'm trying to make is some people have potential. Sometimes his potentials just come out organically. Sometimes you need to be educated. See, look, take care of me. If you guys believe that the kingdom of God lives in... What time is it? If you believe that the kingdom of God lives within you, okay? That's basically the story of shamans. They believe that all human beings have a certain gift within them. But for 99.999% of us, someone needs to walk into your life, get rid of all the social layers, cultural layers, all the awful ways you think about yourself and life. Once the trash has been removed from your interior, they will help you, educate you, slowly tapping into your creativity. Now, your creativity is not about inspiration. It's not about being a good writer, being a great tennis player or a chess player. A shaman is someone who has connection to the world beyond. Let me give you an example. About 40 years ago or so, we had a woman come to our house from Germany. Yeah. And she said, when the earthquake in Iran happened, I saw it 2 weeks prior. When the mass shooting in Germany happened, I saw it 3 weeks prior. And I realized as I got older, I began to have these visions more and more and more and more, and my life became a living hell. Because then I could see a person, then I would know what's going to happen to them 4 months from now, or 3 months from now, or 2 years from now. And it was like life had become a nightmare. And so I turned to the gods and I said, please remove this gift from me. You need to understand, having magical powers is not as fun or as exciting as you think it to be. How many in this class desire to know how your future is going to be? Do you really want to know how miserable and sad and tragic your life is going to be? And how you're going to die? How many tubes will be in your body?
That's in your future.
Of course not. It's much better to live in darkness. Shamans are burdened to carry a cross. They see how people suffer, why they suffer. But the most burdensome aspect of being a shaman is the following, especially when you live in modernity. What is it that shamans have? They have insight. They have wisdom. They want to educate. Every person in the shaman's community is like the prodigal son, a son who wastes. What happens to your teachings? What happens to your wisdom? It goes to waste. So, where are you going? Go where? Class? What class? This is a class? Micro what? This is microphilosophy. I'm just kidding, go. You failed yesterday? Good for you. There is wisdom in there somewhere. Okay, bye. Well, we have time for a couple of quickies. Anyone?
Why are you gonna say anyone and then look at me?
You just came in late. You need to be punished.
You came in way.
Okay,
It's not even way late. It's way late.
turn around.
Everyone. Y'all
Hurry up. We don't got time for that. Just, what's your question?
Questions do I have?
Apology, huh? Okay, apology. Let me say a couple of things about when people apologize. And I'm going to borrow this from Hinduism. You see, some people just mouth an apology to you. They don't really mean it. They're not sincere. It's just something they've done most of their life. Oh, Dad, sorry I shit all over your face. I apologize. Oh, Mom, I'm sorry I stole your car. I apologize. Oh, I'm sorry I cut off your head. I apologize. You don't really mean it. You're not sincere. That's one form of apology. It's a social construct. Doesn't mean anything. But at least you're nice enough to say you've been raised relatively well. You're not a complete beast. And then there is another form of apology, which means that, you're like an hour late to class. There is a decorum, basically all branches of life, and you're basically crapping on that. You feel bad. It's because you're thoughtful sometimes, you're reflective, and then you come to class and say, Amir, my king, I apologize. And this apology is it has more weight than the first one because you gave it some thought, you realize your mistakes, but it's not enough to make complete change. But, you disrupt the class. He was focused. He's unfocused now. He was focused. Trash now. They were never focused, so it doesn't really matter. So there are lots of things you begin to think about and consider, and then you make your apology. Then there is this other apology. Oh man, it comes from your soul. It's like, it's repentance. You know your transgressions. You know you've committed a grave crime against yourself, against me, against your classmates. And it's not just filled with ideas. You feel it. And then you come to class and you say, I'm really, really sorry. And then you give me a hug. You give him a hug, him a hug, him a hug. Not them. Just us. But then there is this other apology. That's the fourth and the final last one. It's your soul, your body, your intellect, and your emotions. They're all one man. You just know you've made such a big mistake. You come to class and your head is bowed down and tears are just flowing. And none of us can leave the classroom because your tears has flooded the classroom. And like a good samurai, you grab a dagger. I'm just kidding. Okay. So, what's your question? Now, I may have told you the story in a relatively humorous way, but the truth is there are four ways that you could speak, or you could act, or you could be. You could be very much on a physical level. You could be on an emotional level. You could be on an intellectual level, spiritual, and beyond.
My question would then be.
I can't hear you.
You can be in that corner. You gotta be.
That's true. Okay.
So my question would then be: with life, earlier in class you said how technology goes really fast. It's the exact opposite of life. Life goes slow. Things go slow. So
Let me correct that. Only events in life that you don't enjoy very much go slow. For those of you who don't enjoy being in this class, it's only an hour and 15 minutes, but for you it's a lifetime. But for those who enjoy, you come to class and then you say, okay, see you guys tomorrow. It just started, yeah. It started about an hour and 15 minutes ago. So when I speak about life going slow, most of life is uninteresting. They're imposed upon you, but go ahead.
how do you kind of trick yourself? Because we're in a society that we're so used to technology going fast and what everything is. So how do you, I guess not trick yourself, how do you get yourself?
Look, you can't do anything by yourself on your own. I've mentioned this 1,000 times in all of my classes. You need to be in an environment where life is basically slowed. It's slowed down by the people who you're living with and are in contact with. You know, imagine you work at a farm or you work at a ranch, or imagine that you're in Montana or Wyoming and your people have a big farm and you have horses and cows. Well, what are you going to do? Run from your house to the stable, which is like over there? No, you just walk slowly. You wake up at 5 in the morning when the roosters begin to sing songs. Life is just slow. You know, there is no place to go, not much to do. And if you leave Oakland for, say, Wyoming, big farm, it's going to be a nightmare for you for the first couple of weeks or months. Then you will kind of adjust. And you have to kind of take the wisdom of Charles Darwin in, and that initially all things are going to be difficult. But there is something about your organism, your physical, your emotional, your intellectual. They will adjust, they will adapt, they will learn how to cope with new environments. Join a cult. And by cult, I mean, if you happen to have friends who are religious and they pray before having food, hang out with them for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, every single day. Now, usually when you eat food, you eat like an animal, like a pig. You know, you have a Subway sandwich here, you have a hot dog here, and you're holding the Coke with your feet. Okay? And then you're watching like 5 TV shows at the same time. That's how you eat. Right? Well, that's how she eats. I've seen it. Now, and this has been your habit for a while. And then you all of a sudden go to an environment where people are very mindful, very conscious when they're eating food. And they say a couple of prayers according to their own tradition. You know, no one eats until the elder of the environment is sitting at the table, and you wait and you wait. And you have to make sure that the spoons or the forks or the utensils are not touching the plate, and if they are, they're not making any noise. No one talks. No one looks at anywhere except their plate. And then initially, of course, it's going to be difficult because you're learning a new language. And that language comes from a tradition you're just not accustomed to. You've never seen, you've never been in. But if you stay there for 5, 6, 7, 9 months or weeks, slowly you will adapt. And what will happen, let's just say, a bomb drops and everyone in that community dies. You're the only one who stays alive. And so you form your own community. And what you do is you teach people how to eat slow, how to be mindful, how to be aware when they're eating. That's how it is. You want to slow down life? Hang out with people who are slow. I'm not talking about slow because they just don't think and they just are slow. I'm not talking about like hang out with, well, maybe you can hang out with like me and Ray. We don't walk fast. Watch that movie, what is it called, Zootopia? When they go to the bank to ask for some information. Yeah, the sloth. How you doing? Good. And of course, you from Oakland said, could you say good? Yeah. And after a while, you realize, well, and there is this other approach that you can take. There is nowhere to go in life. All things are really, for the most part, uninteresting when you are able to see behind the curtains how they function. Alice in Wonderland. It's only a wonderland when you haven't pulled the curtains. Once you pull the curtain, you realize, oh my God, this man is playing all these tricks on us. Finish school. Take classes. Get done with Laney. All of you. Get your tiny smelly behinds into a 4-year school. If you've been coming to this class consistently, you enjoy. Maybe sometimes you don't enjoy, you don't want to be here, you just do it the other obligation. But if you have come to this class on a regular basis, you're interested. Allow your interest to blossom, to prosper. Finish your undergraduate, go to a 4-year school, get your master's. Do not be satisfied with simply a bachelor's. You're young, man. These questions about shamanism and optimism, pessimism, and slowing down, they're all great. When it comes to finishing up school, you don't want to do slow. You want to do fast. Right now, you're very lucky because most of the classes are online. Just do it. Just don't get caught. Do whatever you can to pass these classes. You will reap, by the time you guys are 25, 30, having a master's degree, you're unstoppable. You can get the hell out of Oakland if you don't like it. You can buy yourself a nice little property. And when your mind is educated, you will find a companion who's right for you. Don't do drugs, don't do alcohol, don't do porn. So listen, it's good to see all of you. Yeah. And come help me in the backyard. All right, you guys. Have a nice day. I'll see you on Thursday. Oh.